Hey there, everyone. Welcome to the Horn Call podcast. My name is James Bolden. I'm the publications editor for the International Horn Society and the host. We've got a great conversation today with John McGuire, the upcoming host of the International Horn Competition of America and the 56th International Horn Symposium. John teaches at Colorado State University in Fort Collins, Colorado, which is going to be the venue for both of these events. The dates are July 26th through the 29th for the International Horn Competition of America and July 29th through August 2nd for the International Horn Symposium. I hope that you will enjoy our conversation today. We get into all kinds of fun discussions about the planning process, about the overlap between the International Horn Competition of America and the International Horn Society, and all of the fun and exciting things coming up at both of those events next summer. Before we do that, though, I just wanted to mention that as we draw closer to the end of the year, please remember that the IHS is a 501c3 organization, which means that we can accept tax-deductible donations from anyone who pays taxes in the United States. We are primarily a volunteer-run organization, so of course, membership and donations are really what help us deliver all the programs that are offered, like scholarships, composition support, and the very many awards that the IHS is able to provide. We're grateful for your support, which helps connect horn players across the world. Please visit hornsociety.org/donate to make your gift, and I hope you'll join me in supporting the IHS with a charitable donation. And without further delay, here's my conversation with John McGuire. Thanks again for joining me today. And of course, we're here to talk mainly about the IHS Symposium coming up, IHS56, as well as the International Horn Competition of America. But John McGuire, if you could take a second and just introduce yourself to our listeners, for those who maybe might not be as familiar with you. You've got a really distinguished career as a performer and an educator, a chamber musician, soloist, all of that stuff. But just in case there's anybody who might not be familiar with you, give us maybe the thumbnail sketch.
Well, sure. Thank you. First of all, thank you, James, for having me. I appreciate the opportunity to come on and speak with you and all of the listeners out there across the world. My name Dr. John McGuire. I teach horn at Colorado State University, where I've been for the past 11 or 12 years. It's really kind of a dream job of mine to be at a school so wonderful and a location as terrific as Colorado. So zero complaints there. But I have had at this point, it seems like a long career. In a lot of ways, I don't feel so old, but in other ways, I feel very old. Kind of like you said, the thumbnail version. Studied at the University of Alabama with Skip Snead, Florida State with Bill Capps. Studied some in Chicago with Dale Clevenger. Did a fair amount of playing around in the orchestral world. An awful lot of orchestras in the Southeast. Played some with New World. Played some with the Civic Orchestra of Chicago. A little bit of playing here and there with the Dallas Symphony, Fort Worth Symphony, Dallas Opera after I got out. Ended up discovering that I really loved teaching over the course of my freelance career. And went back and got a doctorate, and just to pursue the ability to teach collegiately, and I've been here in Colorado State since 2012. So I think what the way I always like to describe it to people is, yes, I'm a musician, yes, I'm a horn player, but more than anything, I feel like my true calling is as a mentor and a guide for young aspiring musicians, and so. I like to mentor through music and through horn playing, but the key there is mentoring and helping people find their own voice and their own calling. So that's kind of where I've come from. I've tried to exhibit a lot of those qualities in my time here at Colorado State, hosting different workshops or conferences and whatnot, but also hosting the International Horn Competition of America in 2017 and 2019. And again, coming up in 2024. So I guess I'm just a glutton for punishment.
Well, you must know what you're doing, and you must be a good host. And I mean, this is an unprecedented event that I'm aware of to have first the IHCA and then the IHS Symposium right on the heels of that. And again, let me make sure that I have the dates right here. I have them written down. I just don't have them memorized yet. IHCA is July 26th to the 29th, and then IHS 56 will be July 29 through August 2nd. Did I get those right?
Yep, that sounds right to me. So
Okay, excellent. And without opening a whole lot of a whole can of worms here, could you tell us a little bit about what the planning process for something of this magnitude is like? I know it's years of your life probably that.
oh yeah, well, I think it's taking years of my life, years off of my life. Honestly, it came about that the joint event or the back to back events weren't my idea, and wasn't something I'd even thought about. I had when I was at IHS 54 in Kingsville, I met with Nancy Joy, the IHS Symposium coordinator, a couple of times to discuss the possibility of hosting, IHS at some point in the future. And it turns out they needed a host for IHS 56. So, I was happy to get my materials in, which took 2 or 3 months to kind of get all that stuff in. It's a very detailed process, thankfully. So it gave me an idea about the kind of depth and detail that will go into something like a symposium.
Mhm.
And Nancy, we in that planning process, we spoke, at least once a week, sometimes 4 or 5 times a week,
Uh-huh.
because she's an absolute saint, as I'm sure anybody in IHS knows.
Yep.
Um,
Shout out to Nancy.
oh, absolutely. I mean, whatever the highest place in heaven is for a horn player, Nancy deserves to sit at the top of that heap. I'm convinced.
Yep.
But Nancy knew that we'd been talking in one of our conversations. She knew that I'd hosted IHCA
Mm-hmm.
a couple of times, and in 2022, when IHS was in Kingsville, about 3 weeks later, IHCA had their event that year at a different location at the University of Alabama, and we were both just kind of talking. Wouldn't it's a shame because we both felt like both events kind of detracted from each other, took
Mm-hmm.
took people away, and Nancy made the comment, asked the question, wouldn't it be great if we could just do it all together, just bring the community together all in one place,
Mm-hmm.
especially coming out of the pandemic. That was something that was, it just seemed to make more sense to join forces, combine forces, and see if we could make it a bigger, grander event for everybody, that would include everybody. And when she said that, she then followed up with, "Do you think that this is something that you could do?" And I just remember talking to her on the phone, and my eyes got really big, and I think I stuttered and stammered for a minute. And I was like, "Well, I guess I could ask the board of IHCA and see. Let's find out."
Uh-huh.
And part of me on one level was just like, "Come on, guys, please tell me this isn't possible." It's but fortunately, they saw the advantage and the benefit of trying to work with IHS,
Mm-hmm.
for this event, and we'll see how it goes. It's certainly a bit daunting. I will say that there are wonderful people on both sides of this, on the IHS side and the IHCA side,
Mm-hmm.
who have for months been stepping up and saying, this is a lot. What can we do to help? And it's a lot of people that are wonderful performers, wonderful pedagogues, wonderful colleagues who just simply want to make this the very best event possible for everybody. And I think with as much as I've laid awake at night, wide awake in the middle of the night, thinking about all these details, it has given me tremendous comfort, and would not in any way be possible, nor would I even agree to do any of this if I didn't have nearly as many wonderful colleagues and friends and collaborators across the spectrum of the horn world. So
Mm-hmm.
I think that anytime whether it's with these events specifically, but just in more broad general terms, I think that anytime I start to get down or lose a little bit of sleep or whatever, it really is invigorating to see just how many people want to step up and want to help and are just absolutely terrific people, and it gives me the motivation certainly to keep going to help make the best event possible for everyone. So
Well, that's great, and I mean, there is a lot of overlap between people who have been prize winners and participated in so this is going back a bit. It was the Heldenleben International
Right.
Horn Competition, and then it was the American Horn Competition, and now it's the International Horn Competition of America. But I mean, things have obviously changed along the way and that sort of thing. But that's the sort of the lineage of that competition, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Of course, the Heldenleben competition, got started back in the 1970s, and that was long before you or I were around.
Right. Yeah.
In the horn world, certainly. And then you're right. Eventually, the American Horn Competition, and that's where I came to know it as an undergrad.
Mm-hmm.
It was, honestly, just kind of, play a little bit of a storyteller role here for a moment, if
Yeah.
you'll humor me.
Please.
I had gone into college as a horn performance major and was, working really hard, studying with Skip Snead at Alabama, and for 2 years, 2+ years, was just living in the practice room day and night,
Mm-hmm.
at all hours of the night, and early morning, and making all kinds of progress, but not really, seeing a lot of the results of that on stage. And it wasn't until I went to the 1997 American Horn Competition in Santa Barbara, California, that for whatever reason, just everything seemed to click and seemed to line up when I was there. All the work I'd put in for a couple of years really seemed to, get dialed in and focused. And I had a very successful, experience. Ended up making it through to the finals,
Mm.
and that experience gave me a tremendous amount of confidence, and great opportunities that came out of that, in the months and years that followed. And I've always said that this competition served as a springboard for me in my career. And um, I don't know that I would be where I am today were it not for the experience and the opportunity of being able to play in that competition. So, later on, after I ended up, fast forward a couple decades, and I ended up, helping and hosting and eventually being asked to join the board. And, there, as is the case with any organization, you have ups and downs and bumps along the road, and you just hope that you can, be part of something that makes the world a better place. And in this case, the horn world. And I think that IHCA, strives to do that, and is successful with that. And I look at the colleagues that I have around me in that capacity, and it really has, served as inspiration to try to be for this next generation, upcoming generations, exactly what I felt it was for me, so many years ago.
Mm-hmm. No, that's great, and that's I think as I mentioned, there's a lot of ways that aligns with the goals of the IHS too. So again, I think this is going to set the bar really high, John. I think you may have some future symposium hosts who are like, hey, why'd you do this? Now we all have to host IHCA. But all kidding aside, I'm looking forward to it. I think it's going to be, and of course, I think the hope, right, is that people come for the competition and then stay for
Yes.
IHS, or if they are planning to come to IHS, they go ahead and come a few days early and see some of the IHCA stuff.
Oh, absolutely. I think that, the way that we're setting up the schedule, I think it's going to allow for people coming to either, or hopefully both, to catch some of both.
Mm-hmm.
It's, the competition will have preliminary rounds on the Friday and Saturday. The semifinal rounds on that Sunday, the day before the symposium starts. And then we're planning to have a big, the final rounds for the university and the professional divisions happen on the first day of the symposium, so that everybody can kind of see who the best of the best are in the competition. And it'll give an opportunity for those finalists to really, hopefully play for a very large, excited crowd.
Mm-hmm.
If you go back and you look at the list of winners from the competition, it's, a lot of people that have been featured in the horn world at
Mm-hmm.
IHS symposiums and whatnot, for many, many decades. And I think to be able to see, well, who are the next ones, who's up next,
Right.
is going to
Yeah.
be really exciting for the IHS audiences. So yeah, it ought to be really a lot, quite a bit of fun.
That sounds great. And so if we could, let's talk a little bit about the setting, the venue for both of these events. So
Sure.
tell us a little bit about Fort Collins, a little about the university, things that you feel will make this a very unique experience. You know, every symposium has its own kind of character, if you will, and its own, you know, personality. And I think that makes them fun to go to multiple times. And it's what I always tell people. Just because you went to one 5 years ago doesn't mean you saw it all. Every single one is different guest artists, different venue, different, you know, different countries. So I think there's every reason for people to be interested in this.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I mean, the first thing that I'll say is that just a shout out to my university and my colleagues there. I've been a part of several different faculties along the way, and I can say that I've never felt more at home and more at ease with a group of friends and colleagues than I do at CSU. Everybody is supportive of everybody else. There, sometimes you have institutions where people, different factions or different groups on faculties tend to not always get along with each other. And sometimes there can be political things behind the scenes. And CSU is just simply one of those in my mind. The only way I can describe it is just a magical place where, not that we all, agree all the time, but everybody is supportive and respectful of each other. So it's like, that's really one of the biggest reasons why I decided to put in for this, was because I knew I had support from everybody here.
Mm-hmm.
So just from an institutional standpoint, I've been very, very encouraged, by CSU for well over a decade now. The facilities we have, I mean, folks can kind of see those, you see a lot of that online,
Mm-hmm.
the website hornsonthehorizon.com. And you'll see some of our world-class facilities. Our concert hall is a beautiful concert hall. We have a recital hall that is absolutely gorgeous. We call it the organ recital hall because there is literally this massive organ, and the organ sits on the stage. The pipes are just right there on the stage, and
Oh wow.
yeah. So I'm hoping that we have some performers that would like to perform with organ during the symposium, because I think it'll be a really wonderful experience. It's one thing when you can hear a really good organ, but when you can literally feel the floor vibrating because
Right.
of the organ, that's a very different experience and a very cool one, and that's something that we're very proud of here. Fort Collins is a town that is absolutely picturesque.
Mm.
It is right up against the foothills of the Rocky Mountains. We're about 45 minutes to an hour north of Denver.
Okay.
So we're close enough to be close to Denver International Airport. And a lot of great things that come with being in a large city. The absolutely terrific Colorado Symphony. We have a lot of really terrific educational institutions just down the road with University of Colorado, University of
Mm-hmm.
Wyoming in northern Colorado, Denver University. All of these, and all of our colleagues here are very excited and have expressed a lot of support for this event as well. A couple things that I think make this locale unique is the physical location. Just
Mm-hmm.
being right here up against the Rocky Mountains. You're about an hour's drive from Rocky Mountain National Park, which hopefully a lot of viewers will have visited or at least are familiar with. If you're not,
Mm-hmm.
you're going to find some of the most awe-inspiring natural wonders anywhere in the world just down the road. So as a little side note, I would highly encourage lots of people to come here, obviously partake of everything that they can with horn, but if you can make time to either before or after, or you need a break or whatever, just get out into nature and you will be inspired, and it'll be absolutely just awe-inspiring and wonderful. And I frequently go up to Rocky Mountain National Park, or up to a reservoir that's close to here called Horsetooth Reservoir. It's about 20 minutes from our music building. That's just to go on hikes or to just sit by the lakes or the forest or whatnot. And so there's a tremendous connection to nature here that I think is just about everyone here feels, certainly. And on a lighter, a bit of a lighter note, I will say that and I know this isn't for everybody, but Fort Collins has a bit of a beer culture here.
Okay.
And we have a tremendous number of craft breweries here in town. I think
Mm.
last I checked, it was about 2 dozen craft brews just in Fort Collins. So, there's going to be a tremendous amount of opportunity to kind of get out and experience what Fort Collins has to offer with the culture, beer, and in and out of nature, and in a picturesque setting. So
Yeah, I sense I foresee a lot of post concert hangouts happening.
oh yes, yeah, there is. I wish that it's either a blessing or a curse, but there's literally a brewery about half a block away from our building, and I'm not sure if that's a good. Some days that's a good thing. Some days, maybe not.
I imagine the local food is pretty good as well.
Oh yeah, 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 absolutely. I mean, they have just kind of a tremendous amount from all over the world. Typically, you'll see around that time a lot of southwestern fare, a lot of
Okay.
hatch chilies and whatnot, Pueblo chilies as they call them here in Colorado,
Hmm.
and a lot of inspired food that's inspired by that kind of Mexican or southwestern flair.
Yeah, I'm there. That sounds great. So tell us a little bit about what kind of weather we might expect. Is this kind of, do we need to bring long sleeves, or can we do shorts and t-shirts?
You at that time of year, Colorado, it's kind of that saying that I think you hear in a lot of different regions. It's like, welcome to Colorado, where it can be 30 degrees in the morning, and
Hmm.
95 in the afternoon, and
Yeah.
but it probably isn't going to be all that cold. Now I know my perspective may be a little bit different. Right now I woke up this morning and it was 7 degrees outside.
Oh,
It won't get that cold here in the summer. In the summer it's usually pretty warm.
okay.
The lows at night may go down into the 50s or 60s. In the evenings, Fahrenheit. And then in the afternoons it can get up late July, early August. It's usually in the 80s or 90s.
Okay.
So it can be pretty warm. I will say that it doesn't because we're at higher altitude.
Hmm.
You can get a sunburn a lot quicker here than you would at lower elevation. So
Hmm.
people will just want to, if you're fair skinned or you tend to burn easily, you may want to just consider bringing some sunscreen with you. It also has a tendency to be very, very dry here.
Okay.
So make sure you bring your water bottle with you and you are
Hmm.
drinking water all the time. I mean, we have water bottle refilling stations all over our facilities for that purpose. When I first moved to Colorado back in 2012, I for the first 2 or 3 weeks, I noticed I just had an awful headache.
Hmm.
And then somebody told me, well, you're probably dehydrated. You need to drink a lot more water.
Right.
And between the water and the altitude, if you're not getting plenty of rest and you're not staying very hydrated, you will notice that you start getting headache and feeling maybe a little fatigued. So for people at lower elevations, there's not a lot you can do to train for that. Just you kind of
Right.
know to expect it. And the best thing you can do is if you can get here a few days, early to just kind of acclimate, that'll help.
Hmm.
But like I said, just staying hydrated is critically important.
Yeah, I was going to say, coming from, I'm from Louisiana, and everywhere is less humid than Louisiana, pretty much, unless
Right.
it's Florida, right? But you know, so I was just going to say, like, what that process was like for you. The one thing I forgot to bring to Montreal was a hat. I wish I had brought a hat, just because.
Right.
Well, and the thing, in low humidity, you don't notice when you're sweating. Like, you might
Yeah.
be just burning up and not notice it because you're not perspiring the way you might in a more humid climate. So
Right.
it's really important to drink a lot of water.
Yeah. It's as I think I mentioned, I come from Alabama. I grew up there
Hmm.
and went to school there, and I go back there periodically, and like every time I'll like fly from Denver to Birmingham, Alabama, and I get off the plane, and it's just like the wall of humidity hits you,
Yeah.
and you're like, wow, I didn't realize just how dry it is in Colorado until I go like anywhere else.
Hmm. Yeah, yeah. And what since this is a horn podcast, did you notice? Did you have to adjust differently in terms of your playing? Did it just take a little while just to get used to that different environment?
It did. I mean, the reality is that the air is thinner here. We're just about a mile high, and Fort Collins a little under a mile
Hmm.
in elevation. And no matter how great your lung capacity is, no matter how well trained and refined you may be, you're still going to feel it if you're not used to this altitude. So,
Mm-hmm.
frequently, even now, it's like been here forever, and I still catch myself getting winded going up 2 or 3 flights of stairs.
Mm-hmm.
I've I can say, as far as my plane is concerned, that was probably the biggest thing that I had to adjust to, is just a lower lung capacity.
Mm-hmm.
I remember a few months before I moved here, I had the opportunity to perform the second Strauss horn concerto
Mm-hmm.
at a much lower elevation, and it felt fine. It was great. And then I get here, and my second semester here, the beginning of my second semester teaching here, the conductor of our orchestra asked if I could play, Strauss 2 with the orchestra,
Mm-hmm.
the school orchestra. I was like, yeah, that'd be great. What a wonderful experience. And I remember starting to work on it, and at first, for the first few days, it's like, man, something's wrong with my lungs. I can't play my phrases nearly as long as what I was used to, and what I had been doing. And so there are things that you just have to adjust. You have
Right.
to adjust to. And so what I would say for anybody who's planning to perform at the symposium or the competition is, just plan accordingly. Understand that you will get here and feel like you're running low on air, and
Mm-hmm.
that makes your experience just like everybody else's.
Right.
So
Well, and that's something athletes deal with all the time when they travel across the country and that sort of thing. So just, yeah, I mean, all those are all, I consider that's all grist for the mill. It's all good
yep.
training. It's just being able to deliver and, you know, do what you need to do no matter the environment. So it's good for people to have that information ahead of time.
Oh yeah, 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 absolutely.
Yeah. Would you say how walkable is the campus? Is it pretty walkable, like say, logistically getting from dorms to exhibit halls and practice rooms and that sort of thing?
Yeah. Yeah, I would say so. It's a pedestrian campus for the
Hmm.
most part. I mean, there are lots of streets that crisscross, all around the campus. You can certainly drive if you would like to. The dorms are going to be probably about a 15 to 20-minute walk
Hmm.
from the music building. It's all flat where we are. I know that we're just sitting here talking about the mountains and and all that, but where Fort Collins is just on the east side of the Rockies, so we're actually in a very flat area.
Okay.
It's very walkable, very easy. Particularly in the mornings or in the evenings when the sun isn't up, it's actually incredibly pleasant. A little cool in the evening, so it'll be a nice walk. We have a tremendous amount of people who bike
Hmm.
and ride scooters around here, and that's something that there is actually a way you can actually rent bikes for the week or even just for
Okay.
the day if you'd like. So that's something that we've at various events and conferences that we've hosted at CSU. You do tend to see a fair amount of people from out of town who come and bring their bikes. So that's
Okay.
something that I would absolutely encourage along with that.
Okay, excellent. Cool. Well, yeah, that's good to know. So now let's, I guess, turn to more, I guess, specifics about the symposium itself. Are
Sure.
are there any, unique things, guest artists, if you are able to share any information about those that have been confirmed, anything that's just gonna like, this needs to be a can't miss event for all horn players. So what are we gonna do to get them there?
Yeah, well, it's always a little hard I think when you put together a program, like this, because you want to include, or at least I do, I want to include absolutely everyone that I've ever heard or met or
Right.
played with or whatever, and it's just unfortunately it's just impossible to have to include everybody as a featured artist, but
Hmm.
the really the genesis of the featured artist list was just the name of the symposium, Horns on the Horizon. So
Hmm.
while there certainly is a desire for me and I think for everyone to hear a lot of the really wonderful, well established names in the horn world. And we do have a few of those on the featured artist list, certainly,
Hmm.
and I'll kind of go down the list here in just a moment. But there are, I tried to be very cognizant of including either younger or up and coming performers who are making a splash in the horn world that just simply haven't had the opportunity yet to perform at an IHS symposium on a stage of this level.
Mm-hmm.
in the horn world. And I think there are a lot of names, even though a lot of them are new to IHS Symposium. They're not names that are unknowns in the horn world.
Mm-hmm.
So just kind of going down the list. So I have my phone here because I can't remember everybody.
Oh, sure.
But
Yeah.
we have Annika Scott is going to be coming. I know she's been featured a little bit before, but the first time I got to hear her was in Kingsville, and I was
Mm-hmm.
utterly blown away. I've
Yep.
The only person that I've ever heard on hand horn that I've just been, or period performance, that I've been as impressed with was Lowell Greer many
Mm-hmm.
years ago, and so to have somebody like her, agree to come is just a bit of a dream come true.
Mm-hmm.
Kevin Newton from the Amani Winds
Mm-hmm.
is coming. We have Nuri Guarnaschelli
Mm-hmm.
from Europe, Felix Kleeser, who I
Mm-hmm.
know had been, was hoping to be at one of these a few years ago, and I think the pandemic got in the way, if I'm
Mm-hmm.
not mistaken. Joshua Pantoja from Puerto Rico,
Mm-hmm.
really big with jazz and improvisation and whatnot.
Mm-hmm.
Dylan Skyhart,
Mm-hmm.
one of the big players, the big player in the LA Horn Studios, or LA Recording Studio, excuse me,
Mm-hmm.
and somebody that I think a lot of people, even if you don't know his name, you should. But even if you don't know his name, you definitely have heard his playing before.
Yeah, if you've been to a movie in the last, 5 years or 10 years, you've probably heard his playing on one of those soundtracks. Yeah.
Exactly, and he has some really great ideas that for some performances and some lectures as well. Haley Hoops,
Mm-hmm.
second horn in the Dallas Symphony, who is also former winner several years ago from the International Horn Competition of America. We have Yu Hui Chuang, a Taiwanese horn player
Okay.
who lives I believe lives in Germany right now. A lot of really great things that I've heard about him. Shanice Strickland,
Mm-hmm.
who's coming from New York City, doing some really fascinating things.
Mm-hmm.
Outside of just the straight up classical, wonderful player in every regard, but just some of the musical ideas and content that she's putting out there is just really cool and really inspiring. So I'm very much looking forward to hearing a lot of what she has to do. And then also just one of my all-time favorite horn players, Radovan Vlatkovic, is going to
Mm.
be here as well. Not
Okay.
necessarily a new kid on the block, but somebody that when I thought okay, I might be hosting an IHS symposium, I'm going to be a little bit of a kid in a candy store kind of thing. Who can I
For
ask? And
sure. Yeah.
yeah, and he's just somebody that I've listened to for most of my horn playing life, and that I've idolized and looked up to, and I'm absolutely thrilled that he's agreed to come. And I have to say, the entire list of people, and there are two or three others that we're hoping to get confirmation on
Mm-hmm.
as well. So hopefully by the time this is released, we'll have those names out there as well. But I can tell you that when you hear of a lot of those names, there are a lot of big names, a lot of people who've done a lot of impressive things all over the world. And sometimes when as we've probably all experienced in the classical music world, when you're a big name, a big time player, sometimes the ego can be a little intense to deal with. And I have to say, absolutely none of these people have an ego, that I can tell. They're all just absolutely kind, wonderful, terrific individuals that have been absolutely terrific to work with, and they're making it so easy on me to help put this together and help put all of this on. So I think while it's important for me and IHS to have really high quality performers and players and teachers, to be able to feature, I think it's also equally important to be able to say yes, and these people are just as high quality individuals as they are performers.
Mm-hmm. And
That
the
says a lot.
variety, yeah, there's a lot of variety there too. So, yeah.
Good. Yeah, that was something I appreciate you bringing that up. I mean, it's like I said a few minutes ago, it's impossible, I think, to be able to include everything
Mm-hmm.
with a program like this. But I will say that it was incredibly important to me as an individual, but also as a teacher and a mentor and somebody who works with students day in and day out, and has worked with a large variety of students, not just in the ability level, but background, where they come from, where they are. I wanted to make sure that as much as we could, we are able to display on this IHS stage, make sure that there's somebody for everybody, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
That everybody can look at what's on stage and go, I get that person. I relate to that person. That person is, came from a background that's similar to me, or is, runs in a musical world that's similar to what I do. So that variety is, while it's, you always want it to be even more variety. It's I do think that we have a healthy representation right now of what we're putting on the stage.
Yeah, and I mean it is a difficult balance to strike. You do, if people are going to spend money and travel and go through all of that and come to these things, there's a certain amount of giving them what they want, whatever that might be. But then there's also the responsibility to expose them to things they might not otherwise see.
Right.
They might not otherwise hear, music they might not otherwise hear. So I get that is, you can't do 100% of one and leave the other in the dark. You can't do, vice versa. It is a good balance. I think you've really struck that there. I think just based on the names you listed, that's going to be music from like 350 years spanning, all the way from, classical era all the way up to, 21st century stuff. So I think it's going to be really cool.
Yeah, I'm very much looking forward to it. I think there's, by the time we get to the beginning of the symposium, I'll probably be, just perpetually exhausted and running on fumes, I suspect. But I will be equal parts running on adrenaline, because I'm just so completely stoked to see, and hear all of these fabulous performers, and not just the featured artists as well. I mean, we have so many. We're gonna have so many wonderful contributing artists as performers and as lecturers and presenters and whatnot. And also, hopefully a few surprises as well. So,
oh, good, yeah, I'm looking forward to that. And then, of course, the I imagine there's those exhibitors that come to everything, and we're so thankful for them, because they're just as much a part of the IHS as anybody. Anything you want to say about the slate of exhibitors for this?
Well, I mean, we've at the point that you and I are recording this, we've sent out invitations and whatnot. So we're hopefully by the time this comes out, we'll have a very strong list of confirmed exhibitors. I fully expect that, based on conversations I've had with people throughout the horn industry, if you will, and a number of them have already been on CSU's campus anyway, in some of the previous things that I've been able to put together and host. I will say that with regard to our exhibitors and vendors and whatnot, I think that they'll be pleased that we will be housing everything for this symposium in one building, in our building. So our exhibit hall is going to be our large rehearsal room that we have, which is large enough to house an entire collegiate marching band. Which is a very large room, incredibly high, about 3 or 4 stories as far as the height of the ceiling. So it's not going to be an overwhelming acoustical space as far as the volume. I mean, anyone who's been to an exhibit hall at a horn symposium knows how much that can be, how heavy that can be after a few hours. But this hall is literally like just 10, 15 steps away from our big concert hall. So it will be right there, and there will be lots of foot traffic all the time. I think the biggest concern that I have, honestly, for our exhibitors is, I just want them. Yeah, I'm going to be asking them, doing a survey. Do you want a lunch break, or do you want me to close the exhibits, or do you want me to keep everything open? Right. During the entire day. And of course, as far as I'm concerned, that's going to be up to whatever the majority of the exhibitors, what they would like to do.
Yeah, that's good. And so this would be a good chance to ask you about your team there at CSU. I imagine there's probably a grad student or two who is who's in this with you, and then your various other people helping with the planning of this. Do you want to talk a little bit about your team there?
Yeah, absolutely, terrific. Yeah, I think the further along I get in the planning of all of this, the larger the team is growing,
Mm-hmm.
out of necessity. I would say the main people, at least as of right now, are Amanda Myers, who's actually not a horn player, is somebody who has experience as a development director in the arts
Mm-hmm.
for a long time and a lot of many years of event planning. Who is helping me, hand in hand, coordinate a lot of things. We have Christine Pelletier, who is works in the administration for the Cheyenne Symphony Orchestra up in
Okay.
Wyoming. Horn player, former student of Bernard Scully's.
Okay.
So somebody who has performed at a very high level. In fact, she and I a few years ago performed with Bernard. Did Concertstück,
Oh, cool.
Schumann's Concertstück with our orchestra here at CSU.
Nice.
So somebody that I trust, on multiple levels. And she's the exhibitors will know her name. She's our symposium exhibits coordinator for
Great.
IHS56, and is somebody that I have complete trust in. As anyone who's hosted one of these can tell you, and I'm learning more and more every day. The just the having somebody to coordinate the exhibits and the exhibitors is a huge job. So I'm very grateful to Christine for being able to step in willingly and with a smile on her face, and just whatever needs to be done. Both she and Amanda are just like, yes, absolutely. When do you need it done?
Mm-hmm.
And I always feel a little bad when I ask people that I'm working with, it's like, can you please do this for me? I can't do everything, and because I never want to hand off anything to anyone else or ask anyone to do anything that I'm not willing to do myself.
Mm-hmm.
I always feel a little bit of residual guilt in the back of my head for asking somebody else to do something, but they've both been, for a long time now, just like, yes, absolutely. So
Right.
they're completely invaluable. The I'm going to be bringing on here in the coming weeks David Smalley, who is the owner of Colorado Hornworks,
Oh, cool.
a pro shop here in Colorado, and actually he's the guy who built my horn for
Oh,
me a few
wow.
years ago. So I think his perspective as someone who is an exhibitor and a vendor and has been to numerous symposiums, I think his perspective will really help in kind of the day in and day out, week in and week out perspective of a vendor will hopefully be incredibly valuable. And then somebody else that I think is really wonderful, and it's actually going to be meeting with us for the first time tomorrow, the day after you and I film this, is Susan McCullough,
Uh-huh.
former horn professor at the University of Denver. Hosted a very successful horn symposium about 15 or so years ago.
Mm-hmm.
So to have somebody like, and been an active member of IHS and the AC for a long time,
Mm-hmm.
have her perspective from as somebody as a higher up in IHS, but somebody who's hosted this very successfully. I'm a little nervous and excited to have her, just kind of come in and go, well, did you think about this, or have you thought about that, or someone just basically to come in and hopefully point out the blind, whatever our blind spots are,
Mm-hmm.
as we are moving more and more forward with these. And then, just beyond that, absolutely my students, my studio here, I have, two or three grad students that as we move closer and closer throughout the spring and the summer into towards IHS56, that I just know that I'll be able to just be like, absolutely, can you please do this? Can you handle
Mm-hmm.
this? And whatnot. And I would be remiss if I didn't mention also all of the wonderful people at CSU
Mm-hmm.
that have already helped out for a long time. A lot of our promotional materials, a lot of our graphics and whatnot were designed by a man named Mike Solo that I'm absolutely just so happy that he's helping us with. Jennifer Clary, who's helping us with a lot of the promotional stuff and whatnot at CSU, as well as lots and lots of other people. So it is absolutely, that saying, it takes a village. this
Mm-hmm.
may be like getting larger than a village, but it's more of a small municipality, I think.
Well, yeah, the graphics, the promo stuff looks great. The website looks great, hornsonthehorizon.com. And registration is, as of this recording, is not open yet, but you anticipate it being open pretty soon, right?
Yeah, I think we're hoping to open it in mid to late December. So by the
Okay.
time this comes out, hopefully it will have been open for a little while. So
Excellent.
yeah, we're definitely excited about that.
That's awesome. Well, and John, thank you so much for speaking with me today. I think again, this is going to be a do not miss event next summer. The IHCA and the IHS Symposium all in one place within the same week.
Great. Thank you so much for the opportunity. I appreciate it.